Do you really only get one chance to make a first impression? Our time in Dublin started off on the wrong foot.
You're listening to Travel FOMO, a podcast for people self-diagnosed with Wanderlust.
Welcome to Travel FOMO. On today's episode, in our gap year adventure, we are landing in a new country. We are going to Ireland. I am Hilarie Houghton, and with me is my fellow Jameson drinker, Jamin. And
That's
husband.
me.
And we definitely needed some Jameson after we made it into our hostel in Dublin. Things got off on the wrong foot.
Yeah, things definitely did not start right for us. I feel like we were in such a good place in Edinburgh, and then we left there, and both of us had to basically be torn away from Edinburgh to go to Dublin. And we wound up in Dublin. We had to fly, which was the first strike against it because train travel's so easy. And when you travel by train, you end up right in the city center. But when you fly, you end up way out in the country. And so you have to figure out a way to, okay, how am I going to get to the city now? We looked for the option of a bus, but we really couldn't find stuff that was working. The bus line was crazy long. We were like, you know what? We're so tired. We're just going to bite the bullet and get a cab and ride into the Temple Bar area, which is where we stayed. And we're going to do that. So we get in this cab, and our cab driver was the worst.
Oh my gosh, he was such a downer.
He was horrible. And the guy...
We were actually really happy to be there too.
Yeah.
And I was engaging him and asking him all these questions about Ireland. No.
He wasn't having any of it. And I feel like we did not have the luck of the Irish, because the people right in front of us in the taxi stand, their driver pulls up and he pops out, and he's this older Irish gentleman who is like telling them how excited he is to see him, welcoming them to Ireland, and gonna show them where they hide the Lucky Charms. But our guy was just the worst. He had been in Ireland for a really long time, but he hated it. He hated Dublin.
He hated it. He wanted to make sure we did not like it either. He was very aggressive about, because we asked what we should do while we were there, and he said leave.
Yeah. He was actively campaigning against Dublin. I mean, and he didn't like being a cab driver. None of it. We tried to have good conversation with him, and for 40 minutes, he just ragged on Dublin.
Yeah, it was a beating, and we tried so hard to get those vibes to leave, because we were I remember making a conscious effort after we had that cab ride. I realized how much it beat us down a little bit, and we were already really tired, so tired that every single day we were kind of having a hard time getting ourselves to go out and do the things that we were there to do.
Yeah.
And then to arrive in a place that you're just being told by locals is horrible.
Yeah.
And you're like, well, I'm already so tired I could sleep for 3 days straight. So maybe I just sleep my way through Ireland, because you're telling me I shouldn't be here anyway. And I remember though thinking we've got to change this. He put the bad vibes out, but we need to brush those under the rug. We need to move on. We need to turn a new leaf and not let him taint our trip. And we kept trying, and it was hard. I will say, this podcast, you guys should probably go watch the video as well. It's very different. We were not yet comfortable being honest on camera.
Right.
So we were very positive and trying to really just, share all of our favorite things. And we were not sharing any of the things that we are sharing now. So it's kind of two totally different looks at the trip, which is kind of funny.
Yeah, I feel like we were struggling to give everyone an honest take on camera.
Yeah.
At that point. And I remember us even talking about well, what do we do here?
Yeah, how do we couch this?
Yeah, how do we present this? What do we do? And so we just kind of put on a happy face and grinned our way through it.
Yeah.
And really did try hard to turn the vibes around but it just wasn't happening.
Yeah, it was a little rough, but we did it. We still went out and we did the things that we wanted to do, and some of those things we ended up loving. And that it was a little different too, because this is the first place where we stayed in a hostel,
Right?
and which is much different. It's very affordable option, but it's totally different vibes than some of the really cool Airbnbs that we had.
Yeah.
And so, I think we kind of felt that too, and just kind of felt like, oh, like everything was like a little ho-hum.
Right. And it like the reason we stayed in a hostel was because everything there was so expensive.
Right.
And so like in the back of my mind too, I'm like, man, we had to buy plane tickets to fly here. Now we're having to spend more money than we've been spending on Airbnbs to stay in this hostel. The food is expensive here, and we limited our stay to only a few days because it was so expensive. And in the back of my mind, I was like, man, we came to this place that we're not loving, and
spending so much money
right,
on
and it's been so expensive. Like we could have done so much other things for this money, and that really was a struggle for me too, in those moments of like, man, what is going on here?
Yeah, and you just come from like your favorite place, Edinburgh.
Yeah.
And then you end up, like back to back with this place that, I mean, honestly, it ended up at the bottom of the list for us.
It really did, and I don't think that that's Ireland's fault necessarily.
Yeah, good point.
I think that's more on us. We got sucked into the touristy trap part of like Temple Bar, where I feel like everything's made to look old rather than is actually old. And that's not what we were looking for in Europe. And so I think had we gone to the countryside and seen more of the Irish countryside and some castles and things like that, I think it would be totally different.
Yeah.
But I think we just didn't know what we didn't know until we went.
That's right. Yeah. And now we can say like we've checked the Dublin box, and next time we come through, we can just go to those small places.
Yes.
And check those small places out. And you mentioned the Temple Bar District. That is where we stayed. That's kind of where the hostel was located. So it is an older part of town. You don't necessarily feel it though. It feels
right.
It feels kind of like Ireland or Dublin maybe was a city that they just kept updating and updating and updating, and it doesn't maybe have that same historic stamp in time that some other places do.
Right, yeah.
But we did have a really good dinner that first night.
Actually, we did, yeah. I had a boxty, which is a potato pancake, something I really wanted to try over there, authentic Irish food, and it was really, really good. I think you had corned beef, if I'm not mistaken.
It was really good, and we had it at this restaurant where on the rooftop, they had a garden where they would like raise all of their like vegetables and then feed them to you later, which I love.
Yeah, that was great. And do you remember our waiter was really good too?
Yeah, he was very kind, very helpful. And I remember thinking he might just turn things around for us, like, and kind of like, give it a different, a different vibe for us. And he did. It did help.
Yeah, it really did. He was great. Loved Dublin, loved that we were there, wanted us to have a great time. And I was really appreciative to meet him and sort of offset the the cab driver a little bit.
Yeah, for sure.
Is there something you know about that revolutionizes the way you travel? Can it solve problems and help people around the roadblocks on their adventures? Is it just plain cool? If you have a product like that, we would love to tell people about it. Get in contact with us, and maybe next time we'll be talking about your product right now.
So the next day was our first morning in Dublin, and we went out and went for a run.
Yeah.
Which I was really glad we did. I really did not want to that morning.
Yeah, I was so proud of us. It was a hard one.
Yeah, I was so tired and like just sort of a little beat down, but so glad that we went and ran. It was a nice run. We got to see several parks through Trinity College, St. Patrick's Cathedral, a lot of other stuff. we actually documented that run pretty well, and you can see that on the YouTube video. So if you want to go over to our YouTube page and check that out, you can. We've got a lot of that you can kind of see, and was glad that we started the day off that way, because it did help that day sort of right the ship a little bit.
Yeah, and that day got so much better.
It did.
Because then we went on the Jameson tour.
Oh, so good.
That was so great. It was one of the best tours that we did in our time in the UK and Europe. And so the formal title of that tour was the Jameson Distillery Bow Street Experience. And I say that because there are a couple different ones.
Yeah.
And, you could get confused and actually do one that's not even in Dublin. At first I was like a little afraid I signed us up for one that was like across the country. But I have so many things to say about this tour, because it was really visual. They did such a good job using all of our senses, for everything from touch, taste, sound, smell, everything. They just used it all. It was just such a great experience. It was more than a tour. I thought it was going to be a tour of a distillery, and it was so much more than that.
I completely agree. I thought the same thing. I thought that we would look at some big pots and like, here's some dates and then taste a little whiskey, and that would kind of be it. It was so much more.
Yeah. And the designers and creators of the experience were like brilliant in how they basically crafted it in a way. There was so much that was like subtle, as well as some obvious stuff that they did. But I even liked how they brought us into these round rooms, and at first I was like, wow, it's so cool. There's this round room, like everybody has a good view. There were like these tiered floors, so everyone could stand on different tiers and everyone had a great view. And then I kept wondering, why did they keep bringing us into these round rooms? And then it started to dawn on me that they were very subtly creating the experience of you being the whiskey in a way, and you're inside this round barrel, which was so cool. The tour guide himself was like this elderly Irishman, and so you really felt like you're getting the real deal.
Yeah.
And he was like a storyteller / guru, because you could tell he knew anything you wanted to ask him, but also he would tell things in a way that it felt like you were almost watching a movie, like a really great storyteller, not even, sometimes you get the cheesy ones. It was not like that.
Yes,
I agree. It was not like that. It was like he was telling you a story you really wanted to hear what he was going to say next. And he told you about the Jameson family, which honestly, by the time it's all said and done, I have a lot of respect for the Jameson family and just how they cared for their employees so well.
Yeah.
And one of the most interesting things was like during the war, they had to shut down for a couple weeks, and they ended up paying their employees anyway, which was a really big deal at the time, because what was it about like the Titanic had also sunk around that time.
Right. During the same time period that this had gone on, the Titanic had sunk, and the corporation that employed all of the crew on the Titanic paid their wages to their families, like their dependents, I guess, whoever survived them.
Yeah.
And they paid them up to the minute that it sank. And then they stopped their wages right at that point, because they weren't working anymore, because they were dead at the bottom of the ocean. And that's kind of like the culture and what was the norm at that time. And then the Jameson Distillery paid their employees
above and beyond.
Right, when they had to be shut down.
Yeah.
That was a really cool story.
Yeah, really, really cool. And gosh, what else? There was so much that they did within that whole tour. I mean, they let us stick our hands in the grain that they were using and smell different smells, smell the whiskeys, try the different whiskeys. Just so many different ways that we got to be a part of the experience. And they just really just brought you into it all. They used sound. Like the guy had like some clicker or something that was like making different lights move across the wall. And and kind of like in projector style, but in a super legit way.
Yeah.
Super modern way.
Mm-hmm.
And the way they use technology and then the sound to go with it, you could hear the whiskey being made, and it was just really impressive.
Yeah, I feel like so many tours are either really heavy on like history and dates, or really heavy on like touch and feel and like experience and like look at this. And I kind of expected that. I thought it would be like a cattle call where they pushed us past some pots and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But they did like such a good job balancing it all out, pulling you in and making you a fan of Jameson, really.
Yeah. I mean, that's exactly how I feel. Yeah. Like, I'm like, okay, like you got me. Like, I'll be a loyal Jameson drinker, and I'll always tell your stories after this.
Yeah.
When I see somebody with drinking Jameson, I'll say, oh my gosh, did you know that they cared for their employees so well and that this happened and that happened? And I don't know. I just thought they did a really, really good job. And I have a lot of respect for somebody who creates a tour that is that thoughtful. Of course, everyone's favorite part is the end, where we all get to say cheers and try some different whiskeys. And we got to try 3 different ones.
Mm-hmm.
And those 3 were, I don't remember the exact ones, but I do remember that we got to learn how they would toast in Ireland.
Mm-hmm.
And they would say sláinte. And if you look at the word written out, it looks completely different than that, but that's more or less what you would say, and it means good health. Like, I'm wishing you good health. And it's kind of pretty similar to how we use the word cheers, and when everyone toasts each other. And so that was fun. We did that every time.
Yeah, it was really cool too, like especially that part, because the group that we went through with was so diverse.
Mm.
And so you've got this group that you're going through this kind of tour with, and at the end you're all like toasting each other and saying to your health in like this Irish, I guess, Gaelic language, and realizing that there's people from all over the world that were on that little tour with us.
Yeah, you're right. So many different people. Yeah, we were the only Americans.
Right. And I was kind of surprised by that. Like, I expected there to be sort of, I thought it would be like, oh, this will probably be like half Americans or something like that. But there were people from Poland and Belgium, and I think there were people there from New Zealand and all over the place.
Yeah.
Which was really cool just to get to experience it with a group that diverse too.
Yeah, for sure. And the other thing that it makes me think of is that this was like, COVID was still a thing.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people from the U.S. weren't necessarily going across the ocean to other countries at the time.
Yeah.
But Europe was starting to, Europeans were starting to travel a little bit more within their world. And so there's probably a little bit of that. But yeah, it was basically, point is, we absolutely recommend doing this.
For sure.
And it was our favorite thing we did in Dublin.
Yeah, definitely by miles. Like, it was really good.
Yeah.
And it was nice too, because it didn't take all day.
Right.
It was a pretty like short tour, like hour and a half. And so we got to go out and experience more of the city. We walked around. We went to another pub and had Guinness.
Oh, that was a big deal too. Very Irish.
Yeah, the other famous Irish drink. And we had it at a little pub that was less than a mile from the Guinness facility where it's brewed, which was really important because Guinness doesn't travel well, which we learned there.
Mm-hmm.
It has to be kept at temperature, and the further away it gets from where it was brewed, kind of the less appealing or good it is.
Mm-hmm.
And so having it that close was the best that it could possibly be, which was really cool to get to do that too.
Yeah, within a mile of where it was brewed. That's so cool. That's like just so close, so local, hyper local Guinness.
Yeah.
You know?
And we got to walk around the city a little more. We ended up
Mm-hmm.
going to a prayer service that like late afternoon, early evening at St. Patrick's Cathedral.
That was really cool.
Yeah, I really liked that too. Like getting to experience it in the way that it was designed to be used. So that building was built for people to worship and pray, and getting to go in there and experience it that way with people that come there every day to do that was really fun. Just a different way, aside from just getting to walk through it or taking a tour of it, but getting to actually go experience it. I enjoyed getting to do that.
Yeah. And it was really, it was kind of a humble little service. Like it was, it didn't feel too overwhelming or anything. And I really appreciated that
Yeah,
it just felt really approachable.
it really did. You didn't feel like an outsider or like you didn't belong. And, but it wasn't this massive throng of people.
Yeah.
That was really cool.
Yeah. We also had dinner that night in Temple Bar District again, but this time at the Old Mill Restaurant.
Oh, yeah.
Upstairs in this cool little, it did feel pretty old. That place to me felt pretty old.
Yeah, that place did.
And I had mussels, which I was like, we're right by the sea. I need to get like some seafood. And I think you had fish and chips because you were like on a roll with fish and chips.
Well, I think I had recognized that like my ability to order good fish and chips was like quickly coming to a close. And so I was like, fish and chips for everything, fish and chips for breakfast. Like we're going to do fish and chips over and over again until I can't have them anymore for a while. So yeah, fish and chips.
Because then it was a long time. It was a couple months before you were able to get fish and chips, after
Correct.
Ireland.
Yes.
So, ice cream. Oh my gosh, we had ice cream that night. We were like really enjoying ourselves. We'd been really healthy before heading out to Europe, and then we're like, okay, now we're traveling.
Here we go.
But we had ice cream at Murphy's, which I didn't know it until we went there, but it's like really well known. It's got some of the best ice cream, some of the best ice cream. Honestly, for me, it's legit some of the best ice cream I've ever had. I had the sea salt flavor, which you wonder what that tastes like. It tastes like sea salt, and it was amazing. It was so good.
You did really love that, and you continue to talk about that ice cream as your favorite. So you would compare it to any ice cream you've had?
Yeah, like I would compare it to, like, I like it on the same level I like gelato in Italy.
Wow.
And it has something to do too with the firmness. It was a really hard kind of ice cream, and I like that. But also just like the mixture of it, like they did a great job, and the flavor. And I've never found that flavor anywhere else. I've found sea salt caramel, but never just a sea salt.
Yeah.
And yeah, I love that.
Hitting the spot for you.
It hits the spot.
Well, the next day, we actually took a day trip to Belfast, and that will have an episode all of its own.
Yes.
So make sure that you're subscribed. We went to Belfast. We actually went to the Titanic experience in Belfast. The Titanic was actually built there in Belfast. So they have a massive museum for it, and it was not what we expected.
It was not, but we'll tell you guys about that next week in the next episode. But
it was very different, almost to the level of being confusing.
Almost.
But we will fully explain that on next week's episode. So
you'll have to tune in to find out.
Yeah, come back for that.
Yes, for all you Titanic buffs, it is like, it's fascinating, and it is just like Belfast is a fascinating city because of the Titanic.
It really is, yeah.
So we'll talk a little bit more about that next week. We don't want to spoil that.
So yeah, we went there, Titanic experience, and then came back. So it was just a day trip, just a train ride up and back. We came back. We had dinner again in the Temple Bar, Leo Burdock's famous fish and chips, because
Leo
fish and
Burdock's.
Chips.
Yeah. All kinds of famous people have eaten there, by the way. If that matters to you.
Yeah,
it matters to me.
Yeah, one of us was really excited about the famous people. One of us was really excited about the fish and chips.
Like Hilarie, gosh, now I can't even remember her name.
Swank. Clinton.
Hilarie Swank and the whole cast of P.S. I Love You came in there when they were filming in Ireland, and a bunch of different famous people. Like, famous people always hit up Leo Murdoch's, and so I was like, okay, then we got to do that. It was good.
We did. It was good.
Mm-hmm.
We also went to a donut shop.
Yeah.
For late night donuts, which that's when you get donuts in Europe. which was I always thought was really strange. I would see these donut shops and be really excited to have a donut the next morning as an American, and only to find out that the donut shops are not open in the mornings. They're only open late afternoon and evenings.
We saw that several times.
Yeah.
That was like a consistent thing. So yeah, that's so funny. It started off as a rough trip.
Mm-hmm.
There were some highlights that made it a lot better.
Yes.
And it was worth it. And if we were to go back, we would just do it a little differently.
I agree. Yeah. I think that I definitely want to go back to Ireland, and I would do it completely differently than we did this trip. I would spend more time, and I would do it outside of the major cities.
Yeah.
And I would get out into the country. I think had we not gone and done it this way, I would always want to go to Ireland, and the first trip would probably be just like this.
Mm.
So I'm glad that we went, because it will inform our next trip to Ireland, where we'll get out, see the countryside, see some castles, do that kind of stuff. So if you're going to Ireland, I would recommend you do that. It wasn't what we were expecting.
Yeah, it wasn't what we were expecting. And we didn't get to be there very long for a couple of reasons, because it was so expensive. We also had a lot of places we were trying to visit.
Yeah.
So that is a little part of it.
That's true.
And the next day, really, then the very next morning, we had to head out.
Catch another plane.
Catch a plane to Paddy.
Yep.
Which is exciting. And that starts a whole new season for us. We're going to start a new season. But that's after Belfast. So next week, you guys are going to hear about the Belfast day trip, and then you'll hear about us heading on to Paris.
Yep.
But so much good stuff. I do want to hear from other people, though. When we post this episode, you guys should tell us about your amazing time that you have had in Ireland, so that we know how to go back and do it better.
Please.
Because we need your advice. We're telling you our experience, but it's not because we know how to do it. It's because we need you to tell us how to do it next time.
Yeah, we need a tutorial in Ireland and how to do it properly.
Yeah, but also you might be able to sympathize with us. What trip has started off on the wrong foot for you? And did you recover from that bad start?
Good question.
Or did it really never get better?
Did you just swirl in it, or did you get out?
You guys can connect with us on all the social media platforms. We're out in a lot of different places. Facebook, Instagram. Instagram is really where we're most active, probably, and TikTok. We're also on Facebook, and then YouTube, of course. So just find us. We want to talk to you.
Yeah, absolutely. Hit us up. Make sure that you are subscribed, because you will want to hear what was so shocking about the Titanic Museum next week when we go to Belfast.
And thank you for subscribing.
Yeah, thank you for doing that. If you will rate and review, we would also appreciate that as well.
Yes, and make the most of the trips that you have planned, because life is so short.
Wander well.